Chapter 486, She's Awake. Your son embezzled public funds and broke the rules by signing a contract. He has done all kinds of things, hasn't he? He has killed too many people. Is this how you treat me just because I'm not your son? You imprisoned me, but you're so lenient towards your son. Old Mrs. Moses' eyes are full of disappointment. She treated everyone equally and had never thought of favoring anyone. He did those things behind my back. Didn't he end up in jail, even when I found out that he embezzled money? Sheng Li, you have to be satisfied with what you have. If I had known that you could do such a thing, I would have never let you go to the company. I don't want you to be like Chang Wen. Sheng Li didn't want to listen to her principles. Cut the crap. You'd rather a child be the president than me, then I'll destroy them together. Sheng Li left angrily. Mo Yuz had appeared in public. If anything happened, he would definitely be the first suspect. He wouldn't be so foolish. Old Mrs. Mo was very shrewd to have used this move. After Sheng Li left, Mo Yuz moved in openly. Li Fang, from now on, you will have to appear in the public eye frequently, and your days will be full. You can't do anything that will damage the Mo family's reputation. You should know that there are some things you can't do. If you do, the Mo family would rather not have a president than let your son be one. Old Mrs. Mo reminded her. I know, Li Fang said. Meanwhile, at the Mo family villa, Anren and Jinrong were still lying on the hospital bed, wearing respirators and IV drips. Kong Ting, when will boss wake up? Fatty asked. Who knows? It will depend on her. Kong Ting said helplessly. Ever since the organization was established, Anren had suffered injuries of all sizes. It wasn't deadly serious this time, but it was indeed the most dangerous one. The moment she finished speaking, Fatty noticed Anran's hand move. He thought he was hallucinating, but when he saw that Anran seemed to have really moved, he hurriedly spoke. Boss is awake! Boss! He pounced forward and shouted. Anran, who was lying on the bed, opened her eyes and looked at the ceiling in a daze. There were some wounds on her face. Kong Ting looked at her eyes with a flashlight and said, Boss's condition is getting better. Boss, she called out to Anran softly. Anran heard the commotion. Boss is awake! Boss is awake! Skinny cheered. What are you guys shouting about? Anran spoke weakly. Boss, you're awake! That's great! Fatty was overjoyed. You woke me up even if you didn't want to wake up. Anran turned her head weakly and looked at Jinrong beside her, who was wearing an oxygen mask. She was a little agitated. How is he? Boss, don't worry, he's all right. It's up to him when he wakes up, Kong Ting said. She could only comfort her. Anran loved Jinrong, and from the looks of it, his injuries were probably worse off than hers. How are my parents? She asked with concern. They were worried about you, but they seemed to have guessed that you weren't dead, Fatty said. But the Mo family is too much. Jinrong just died, and yet they found a new heir. They even wanted to bury you and Jinrong together. Where did they find the corpses? There are two of them. Perhaps Sheng Li wasn't able to sit still, Skinny guessed. It's very likely Mo Sheng Li is doing this time. He wants to kill Jinrong, Anran guessed. What should we do now? Let her recuperate first. We haven't told your parents yet, Kong Ting added. Sheng Li, we are irreconcilable. Anran grabbed the bedsheets tightly and swore. Ever since Yaxin had heard the news of Anran's death, she was overjoyed and immediately went to the prison to tell her parents about it. Really? The heavens have eyes! Yanshan held the phone and was overjoyed. Of course, Zhao Shimi was the happiest. Those who deserve to die will die sooner or later. It has relieved the hatred in my heart. Zhao Shimi gritted her teeth as she said this. Yaxin, after Anran dies, our lives will be better. Hurry up and get married, preferably to a rich family. Although you were with Jinrong, it doesn't matter. This is a halo, and the women Jinrong touched are even more charming. I can't help you anymore. You'll have to rely on yourself next. Hurry and find a rich husband, my good daughter. Xu Yanshan was more concerned about her daughter's future. Without Ting Young's help, her life won't be easy. Mom, don't worry, I'll lead a good life and wait for you to come out, Yaxin cried. Why are you crying? This is a good thing. It doesn't matter if Ayn Rand dies. Even if she didn't die, I won't forgive her, even if I get out. Is Ting Young upset? Zhao Shumi smiled and said. She didn't have such a filial son. Wouldn't he have to beg for mercy when she got out now that his daughter was dead? Second uncle's his hair is white and he keeps saying that Ayn Rand isn't dead. He must be crazy. He even smashed her ashes. Her poor ashes were thrown into a trash can like trash. She deserves it. Yaxin smiled triumphantly. That's great. This is the best thing, Zhao Shumi smiled. Mama, daughter, did you bring anything good this time? They smashed everything last time. Is there anything good this time? Xu Yanshan smiled. It's been sent in, Mama. That's great. Let's not talk anymore. I'll go and take a look. Xu Yanshan hung up the phone in a good mood, not wanting to hear the rest of the sentence. Yaxin wanted to say that she had found Shen Lin, but the Tan family wouldn't accept her. But before she could say anything, Xu Yanshan hung up and making her feel down. That's how your mom is. Don't mind her. You need to live well. Since Ayn Rand is dead, we'll have to live better than her. Yaxin nodded and hung up. After she came out of the prison, she didn't know where she was going and unknowingly walked to the Tan family's company. Hey, aren't you an old relative of the Mo family? You're so hardworking. Why did you come to the company to work overtime? Shilins isn't even around today. You wasted a trip. Jiang Mei sneered. I should be the one asking you to work overtime. I hope that you have more self-awareness. I'm not satisfied with the port last time. Do it again, Yaxin ordered. I heard that old Master Tan doesn't like you. I advise you not think too highly of yourself. Old Master Tan doesn't like you, and your dream of marrying into a rich family is ruined. Don't flaunt your abilities here. You don't have the right. Jiang Mei had long heard from Tan Shilin that old Master Tan didn't like her, so she didn't take Yaxin seriously. Without the old master's permission, who could enter the Tan family as his wife? Yaxin reached out to hit her. Jiang Mei grabbed her hand and said, Ha! You're nothing now. I advise you to restrain yourself. Pack your things and get lost. It wouldn't be good if you were chased out. Damn it, just you wait. Yaxin put her hand down and left with a flick of her sleeve. Chapter 487, Regret. The Qin family. When Qin Taiyan was packing Qinshu's luggage, Qinshu snatched a suitcase and said, I don't want to leave, I want to stay. Qinshu, wake up. Where are you staying here? To have a baby? How are you going to take care of a baby by yourself without the father? Have you thought about how you're going to explain this to the baby when it grows up? Have you taken care of a baby before? Do you know how difficult it is? Qin Taiyan questioned her. He was almost driven crazy by his sister. He thought that his father's death would wake her up, but he didn't expect her to be so unrepentant, and became even worse. Have you thought about how dangerous it will be after you give birth? You will die. What's the point of giving birth to a baby whose father doesn't love it, and whose mother is missing? Qin Taiyan roared. He was still a university student, so how could he take care of a newborn? Qinshu was stunned. She had never thought about that. She had always been blinded by hatred and wanted to use this baby for revenge, but Ayn Rand was dead, and now this baby was useless. Brother, I'm sorry, she said weakly. Sorry, Dad's death is all because of you. Previously, I've been courting you, lying to you and indulging you in order to take care of your emotions, but I still didn't repent. Ayn Rand is already dead, and you want to cause even more trouble. The Qin family has been humiliated, Qin Taiyan said furiously. Brother, I'm sorry. Qinshu lowered her head and cried. She was unwilling to admit that it was her fault. Get out. Get lost. Qin Taiyan walked out as he shouted. He suddenly stopped at the door. Go to the airport tomorrow. I'll have someone send you off. Qin Taiyan spoke in a deep voice. Brother, Qinshu knelt down directly. She grabbed the corner of Qin Taiyan's clothes with tears in her eyes. There were traces of her father's there. and she didn't want to go to a cold city. She was alone and she was scared. You have to leave. King Taiyan was merciless. Over the past few days, he had seen through his sister's willfulness and couldn't be left to her own devices. Kinshu gave up and slumped onto the ground. She knew that she was in the wrong. All along, she had blamed Anran for all of her sins, but in reality, she couldn't let go of her dilemma. Dad, I was wrong. Forgive me. Dad. Kinshu cried, but no matter how much she shouted, there was no response. Dad, I was wrong. I'm really sorry, Kinshu cried out loud. The Land family had returned home. They were full of hope when they found evidence that Anran was alive. The entire family relied on the evidence of the pendant to survive. Tingyang, who saved Anran, is she seriously injured? Liura was worried. Tingyang shook his head. Don't worry, she'll definitely come back to us after she recovers, she comforted her. She didn't make us worry in the past, so how could she end up like this? Liura was upset. It's the Mo family's fault. Yanran gritted his teeth. It's useless. Even if we call the police now, I hope Anran will be well, Liura cried. Tingyang usually didn't smoke, but now 1 pack a day wasn't enough. Suddenly, Yanran remembered the last time he was kidnapped and someone saved him. That person seemed to be his sister's friend. Did he save his sister? Mom, Dad, I know that sis must have been saved. The last time I was kidnapped, someone saved me. It should be the same this time, Yanran said excitedly. Where does he live? Tingyang asked anxiously. Yanran shook his head. He suddenly remembered that his sister's computer was at home and immediately went to her room to get it. Unfortunately, the computer had a password and he frowned. He searched for Jinrong's birthday online, but the password wasn't right, so he tried his birthday and his parents' birthday, but the passwords were wrong. It's not birthdays. What could it be? Yanran frowned. What was the day she returned? Yanran tried it again and it was right this time. Tingyang and Liura were overjoyed. Turning on her computer, Yanran went straight to the chat history and found that Anran was involved in many things he couldn't understand. What was Anran doing? Tingyang looked at the computer. It was filled with Anran and Fatty's mission exchange. And there were even hundreds of millions yuan transferred. I don't know. Sis must have a different identity and they might have saved her. Yanran scrolled through the chat history and suddenly realized she had a villa. Found it. Didn't Sis have a villa before? They might be here. Yanran was quick-witted. How could I have forgotten? Hurry, hurry, hurry. Let's go and take a look, Liura said excitedly. The three of them went straight to the villa without eating. Anran had just woken up and her head was still hurting. But she felt much better when she saw Jinrong. Anran, your parents have come. What should we do? Han Ting had just returned and asked her. Anran looked at herself now. She was afraid that they would be worried, so she told them to make them leave and tell them that she would visit them when she was better. Tingyang pressed the doorbell anxiously, and Fatty came out. Who are you looking for? Anran, is my daughter here? Tingyang asked anxiously. Fatty received Anran's order through his earphones. Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. Fatty turned to leave when Yanran spoke suddenly. I've seen you before. You're my sister's subordinate. Fatty stopped and said, All right, I admit it. Boss is indeed here, but you can't see her now. Three of them were ecstatic. Why? We are her parents. Is she seriously injured? Tingyang asked. Boss just woke up and there's nothing wrong with her health. She just can't get out of bed. Boss is the one who isn't letting you in. She said that she would see you after she recovered. I want to go in. Why can't I see my daughter? I want to see her. Tingyang wanted to barge in, and so did Liura. Fatty could only let them in when he saw that he couldn't stop them. Anran laid in the hospital bed when she heard her parents' voices. She couldn't help but cry. My daughter. Liura opened the door and couldn't hold it in anymore as soon as she saw her daughter. She eyed Anran carefully. Fortunately, it wasn't a big deal, just some scratches. Sissy scared us to death, Yanran cried. I'm sorry, Mom and Dad. It's not your fault. You just woke up. How are you? Tingyang asked. Uncle, Auntie, Boss has a serious concussion and might not be able to get out of bed for a while, Kang Ting said. Yanan was relieved to see his sister alive. He turned and saw that Jinrong was still on oxygen. Brother-in-law isn't dead either, but he doesn't look good, Yanan spoke. Liu went forward to check and saw that Jinrong was in a vegetable state. Chapter 488, Her Identity. Jinrong is seriously injured. Has he seen a doctor? Liu turned and asked. He had been checked in a hospital. The situation is a little dangerous now, so we brought him back as soon as I was finished with surgery. Auntie, don't worry. I have a medical degree and am very confident in this aspect. It's just that Jinrong's condition is a little serious. The exact recovery time will depend on him. Kong Ting spoke confidently. It was only then that Liu noticed that the people around her were either playing video games or had tattoos on their arms. All of them were dressed extravagantly. The surrounding environment was unique. They were punching bags, gaming machines, and various ropes and weapons on the side, which stunned Liu. Anran, what is this place? What are you doing? Liu asked sincerely. I'm actually an expert in hypnotism. In the past, I learned herbs from those people in the countryside. Later, I realized that some things had the same effect as sleeping pills. I've relied on this to hypnotize others and earn my living expenses. That was how I got to know these friends. This time they saved me, Anran explained to her. You scared me. Thank you for saving my daughter, Liu said as she smiled. She was finally relieved. She didn't blame her daughter for hiding her identity, but was proud of her. Anran, we're sorry. Don't blame us. Tingyong started to cry. Mom, Dad, it's my fault in the past. I shouldn't have misunderstood you. I'm sorry. Anran lowered her head, looking upset. Tingyong and his wife didn't know what their daughter was saying and were puzzled. Daughter, what are you saying? Anran shook her head and wiped her tears. It's nothing. Don't tell anyone about this. The situation is unclear now. You have to protect yourselves and pretend to be very sad. Liu was confused and asked, who wants to harm me this time? Mom, Dad, I can't tell you the main reason yet. You're in danger. So you have to pretend not to know anything, especially to the Mo family. Anran reminded them again. Tingyong nodded. Then you can stay here and recuperate. Your mom and I are relieved that you're all right. Call us if anything happens to Jinrong again. We're both doctors, after all. We can ensure his safety. Dad, have you gotten here? I'm a doctor too, and there's a doctor here. You just have to ensure your own safety. I'll be here with Jinrong for a while, so don't worry, Anran smiled and said. Her injuries weren't serious, so she needed to conduct medicine here to ensure Jinrong's safety. The three of them nodded and went home. When Tingyong and Liu reached their house, they pretended to be sad. They were afraid that someone would monitor the house and hurt their daughter. However, after entering the house, they were overjoyed. I didn't expect my daughter to be so powerful. She's actually a hypnotist and has a bunch of underlings. She hid it so well and didn't tell us. No wonder she can escape danger every time. Liu felt much better now. Tingyong was feeling the same way. I told you Sis is the reincarnation of an immortal, but you didn't believe me. I told you she wasn't dead. Yanan was very proud of his sister's intelligence. Yanan has made a great contribution this time. I feel like I make a lot of delicious food to reward you. Liu smiled as she spoke. Because of my sister, I can't go to work yet, or else I'll be discovered by those people. So during this period, I might have to live off of you guys. Yanan sat on the sofa and spoke. You should take care of yourself first. You don't need to look like a celebrity at all. Tingyong smiled. Yanan touched his face. He was indeed a little sloppy. Because of his sister, he hadn't showered or washed in the past few days. When he smelled himself carefully, he could only smell his own body odor. Meanwhile, old Mrs. Mo was still at a loss. Although there was Mo used now, he was still a child after all. She was old and lacked energy, and she probably wouldn't be able to last long. Anyway, the company couldn't fall into Sheng Li's hands. Old Mrs. Mo, our youth is very smart. Don't worry, what is our next course? Li Fang couldn't wait anymore. Auntie Li, I will arrange for you to go to a prestigious school to learn cultural knowledge and some essential knowledge. You must get bodyguards to pick you up every day. No one else is allowed to pick you up. Take care in your son's safety. It won't be a small matter if something happens, Mrs. Mo reminded her. I know. It's just that Uncle Mo has been watching us, making us scared. Li Fang shuddered at the thought of Sheng Li's gaze. His eyes were cold and terrifying, revealing the trace of killing intent that made one shiver. You don't have to care about him, just protect your son and yourself. Mo Yuz has appeared in public eye, so he probably won't dare to do anything obvious, but he will do something. You must be careful. When old Mrs. Mo finished speaking, Li Fang was a little scared. She was leading a good life and originally wanted her son to live a better life, but now it seemed like a huge challenge, and she might even lose her life. If you want to wear the crown, you have to bear the weight. If you don't want to be president of the Mo Corporation, you have to have the ability and the pressure to bear the responsibility. If such a small matter causes you to collapse, you are not suitable to be the president of the Mo Corporation. If that's the case, you can go back now and you won't lose your life. Your son is still young. If you're afraid, you can leave now. I won't stop you. Old Mrs. Mo was displeased. Old Mrs. Mo, look at what you're saying. How can we be afraid? It's just that my son is too young. I'm afraid that he'll get hurt. Then I'm relieved since old Mrs. Mo has told us this. Don't worry, we'll definitely do well, Li Fang said. You can leave first. I'm going to rest. Old Mrs. Mo waved her hand to Nanny Wu to send him out. After Li Fang left, Nanny Wu spoke worriedly. Old Mrs. Mo, will this really work? Young Master Jinrong's life and death are uncertain. Will he be disappointed if he finds out? Old Mrs. Mo was a little upset. I didn't have a choice. I knew that those ashes didn't belong to Jinrong. Otherwise, Sheng Li wouldn't have cremated the corpse in such a hurry. So that I couldn't see it for the last time. But I have no choice. Jinrong's whereabouts are unknown, and the company won't be leaderless. No matter what, the company can't fall into his hands. We have to find someone to take responsibility. Mo Yuz is a young and is currently being watched by the public. He is the most suitable candidate. Nanny Wu nodded in agreement. Chapter 489, he was sentenced to death. Do you think it was intentional or not? I can't see through Sheng Li anymore. He's a private person and isn't willing to tell anyone about himself. He is thinking about how to empty the Mo family every day. I have to be wary of him. At the moment, it seems like he did it deliberately. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been in such a hurry to hold a memorial service and let the reporters ask questions. Now that Jinrong isn't around, I can only take one step at a time. If Jinrong can still come back, I'll explain everything to him. He isn't a petty person. Old Mrs. Mo understood her grandson. Under such circumstances, letting someone else take his position was the best choice. He wouldn't be angry at her. In my opinion, Sheng Li probably wouldn't let young Master Jinrong appear so easily. I wonder how young Master is doing now. Nanny Wu was very worried. Although she knew that something was amiss, she couldn't do anything as a servant. Nanny Wu, go outside and call back the people monitoring Sheng Li. He actually noticed them a long time ago, but didn't say anything. Keeping an eye on him now won't be of much use. I'll only add to our troubles. Old Mrs. Mo sat on the bed and instructed. Yes, I'll go now. Old Mrs. Mo, have a good rest. Nanny Wu walked out. Old Mrs. Mo muttered as she held the photo of her dead son in her room. Son, have you seen Jinrong over there? If not, send me a message through a dream so that I can be relieved. It's all my fault that I couldn't protect him. Old Mrs. Mo hugged the photo and self-blaming cried. Sheng Li was in a terrible fix. Everything he had planned was interrupted by a sudden appearance. Everything was in chaos and he couldn't attack openly. The more he thought about it, the more aggrieved he felt. He threw down the glass of wine in his hand and turned to walk towards the prison. Cheng Wen had been sentenced to death, but it still wasn't time. Sheng Li wanted to see him one last time. Cheng Wen, are you doing well inside? Sheng Li raised the prison phone and spoke with a smile. This is the first time Cheng Wen had seen Sheng Li in almost 20 years, and he was a little excited. You're really not dead? Was it a conspiracy back then? Cheng Wen asked this question first. Life is full of schemes. I can only say that it was an accident. How do you feel about killing so many people? In fact, I have been paying attention to you all these years. I know about the things you don't, but I have been hiding it for you. You were too stupid. You took the bait when someone threw it. Sheng Li said. How smart do you think you are? What exactly do you want? Chang Wen looked at his smug expression, and he knew that something bad was happening outside. It's none of your business about what I do. Your death sentence is scheduled for next month, and I'm here to see you one last time. Don't blame me for being unkind, and Rong's life and death are unknown now. If you see him over there, please send me a message so that I can take over the company without worry. You killed him? Chang Wen was shocked as he asked him. Wasn't it just a matter of time? I'll help you complete your unfinished business. I know you wanted to kill him and failed several times. Now you should be grateful that I helped you fulfill your wish. Chang Wen calmed down and asked, what about my mom? Don't think about doing anything to her. Chang Wen had always had his mother in his heart, even though he had done many wrong things, and his mother didn't forgive him. The love for her still ignited a flame in his heart. Your mother doesn't even want to talk to you, but you're still so filial. You've been sentenced to death, and she didn't even come to see you. You should be thanking me, but since you asked, I'll tell you the truth. Mom has been hindering me from becoming the president. I have placed her under house arrest, but I have to compliment you for having an illegitimate child outside. I don't know, but I'll let you be happy for a while. Your illegitimate child is about to inherit the position of the Mo Corporation's president, but don't worry, I'll put him down soon and the position will only be mine. If anyone wants to compete with me, they'll be the next Jin Rong. Cheng Li spoke fiercely. Chang Wen widened his eyes and pressed his hand against the glass tightly. Do you think I haven't been to jail? Prison cells abroad are much messier than you think. Didn't I come back safe and sound? Besides, you're locked up here and you won't be able to see your son and mother next month. What can you do to me? But I'm very kind and benevolent. I'll help you bring a few words to your wife and child. For example, don't go against me or you'll end up badly, Cheng Li said. Cheng Li, you beast. Actually, you're far worse than I thought. I just wanted the position. I just wanted to be president, but you don't care about the company at all. What you want is revenge. Chang Wen shouted loudly. His eyes were bloodshot, afraid that Cheng Li would harm his son and mother. You're locked up here and you still want to be a kind person? You killed so many people as I did. Now you only care about your son and mother? Yeah, right. I just want revenge. I'll tell you a little secret. Do you remember the name Mo Ying? The choice to step onto that plane was the worst choice for her. I was the one in charge of her medicine, and I swapped them for vitamin tablets, but I didn't expect her to not even eat those, and Jin Rong became the scapegoat. Cheng Li couldn't stop smiling at the thought. Why? Why are you doing this? Chang Wen was a little surprised. He had always thought that it was because Jin Rong didn't give her medicine, but he didn't expect there to be another reason. Old Mrs. Mo had once blamed herself for Mo Ying's death, but that wasn't the case. She was a high and mighty young lady and never took me seriously. She relied on old Mrs. Mo's protection and her brother's protection and never treated me as her uncle. I was always an outsider, but it didn't matter. Most importantly, she knew about my plan. If it wasn't for her, Jin Rong wouldn't have survived until now. No one who blocks my path will have a good ending. But if you haven't fallen into Ayn Rand's trap, you might have been my prey too, Cheng Li said. But Cheng Wen gripped the phone tightly. He felt that the man in front of him was crazy. Chapter 490. You will suffer retribution like me one day, but since you're here, help me pass a message to Mom and my son. I will die next month, and I hope that they will live well. In this life, I can't be filial to my mom or watch my son grow. I hope that there'll be a next life. There's that one last sentence to you two. I will watch you from the other side. Sooner or later, you will be like me, and I will be waiting there for you. Cheng Wen hung up and smiled. The two of them looked at each other for a long time before Cheng Li came out of the prison. He received a call from Qin Shu. I'm going to abort the baby now, and then go abroad and never come back. I'm calling to let you know. Qin Shu hung up. She stayed up the entire night and finally understood. She had gone overboard in the past, and Jin Rong hadn't even done anything to her. She had been too conflicted and took things too seriously. Her jealousy and anger had killed her father. She regretted it very much. It doesn't matter what she did now. She had to pay the price for everything she had done already. Hintayan accompanied his sister to the hospital for the abortion. He was glad that his sister finally woke up, but his father would never come back. An hour later, Kinshu had finally pushed out. Her face was pale and she was lying on the bed with an IV drip. Her expression was very relaxed. "Brother, I'm sorry. I was too willful in the past and killed Dad. It's my fault that Dad can't come back." She was smiling when she cried. Hintayan wiped his sister's tears patiently. He comforted Kinshu carefully. "It's not your fault. You have to get well soon and I'll send you abroad, all right?" Kinshu nodded. She really needed to go abroad to relax. Sheng Li pretended to appear in the hospital by chance. "What are you doing here?" Hintayan looked at him in confusion. Sheng Li smiled as though nothing had happened. "I'm just here to see a friend. What about you and Kinshu?" Was he asking if the surgery was over? "My sister had a small illness, so I brought her here for the surgery. It was a success." Hintayan hid the fact that his sister had an abortion. Sheng Li nodded and looked at Kinshu with a smile. "That's good, I'm leaving." He had an indescribable feeling. Although he felt that the baby couldn't have come into this world, it was still his baby, and he couldn't bear to part with it. Kinshu didn't want to look at him anymore. The man changed the trajectory of her life, and the relationship might end up just like that. Hintayan looked at Sheng Li's disappearing figure and suddenly felt uneasy. Was his sister and him? He couldn't accept it. He knelt down and asked, "Is this baby his or not?" Hintayan's question stunned Kinshu. She turned her head, leaving behind tears, and said weakly, "The baby is gone. Why are you asking me this?" "Brother, I don't want to answer anymore. I'm a little tired. I'm going to sleep." She didn't want to talk about it anymore. She was just avoiding it. She was indeed insensible in the past, but now that she understood, she regretted it and was hopeless. Just because Kinshu didn't say anything doesn't mean that he couldn't find out. After Kinshu fell asleep, Hintayan walked out quietly. He left the hospital and saw Sheng Li was still there. He seemed to be hesitating as he looked in the direction of the hospital. "Mo Sheng Li, is my sister's baby yours?" Hintayan chased after him and asked. Sheng Li didn't answer, but Hintayan treated it as if to agreeing to it. He swung his fist and Sheng Li was knocked to the ground. "You bastard! I don't care if my dad cooperated with you, but you shouldn't have touched my sister. She has a heart disease. Don't you know that? Why did you make her pregnant?" Sheng Li wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and didn't fight back. "It was an accident. After I found out that she was pregnant, I immediately made her abort the baby, but she was unwilling." Sheng Li had punched again. "You bastard! You ruined my sister, and you want her to have abortion? You bastard! The Mo family and the Qin family are irreconcilable." Hintayan didn't feel any pain when his hand bled. After Sheng Li returned from the hospital, he was in a daze and happened to bump into Mo Yuz. He stared at him with a horrifying gaze. Li Fang hurriedly led her son into the room to study. The person was terrifyingly cold and difficult to approach. Moreover, he looked like he had just finished a fight. "Mom, are we in danger now?" Mo Yuz seems to sense the murderous aura around him. "Nonsense, it's not dangerous. Study hard and the Mo family will depend on you in the future." Li Fang caressed his head and said. Meanwhile, inside the room, old Mrs. Mo was sleeping when she suddenly felt the door open and someone enter. She had just turned around and saw Sheng Li's cold face. "What's wrong?" Old Mrs. Mo was startled. "I went to prison today, and your son asked me to pass a message to you. He'll be sentenced to death next month and hasn't been able to be filial to you in this life. He hopes that you will lead a good life and be healthy. These are the last words for your son. He'll misses you even in the face of death, but you don't even want to see him. I feel bad for him," Sheng Li said bitterly. Old Mrs. Mo was dumbfounded. Chang Wen was sentenced to death? She instantly felt her heart ache. None of her 3 sons had ended well, including the living one. "Mom, your life is really tough. I wonder if you'll have a chance to sit there and talk to you in the future, but I hope not." Sheng Li left after speaking. Nanny Wu supported old Mrs. Mo, feeling sad for her. "Oh, Mrs. Mo, are you really not going to see the second young master?" Old Mrs. Mo shook her head and cried. "No, if we ignored his ambitions, Chang Wen is a good child. but it's a pity that I didn't educate him well. Well, Mrs. Mo, don't be sad. Second young master is already in such a state, but he still misses you. It's obvious that he knows his mistake. It's a pity that it's too late to regret now. Nanny Wu shook her head and felt her heart ache. Nothing good had happened recently. A blow followed by another blow hit old Mrs. Mo. If it weren't for the fact that she was mentally strong, she would have been suffocated by the weight of it all. Forget it, you can leave. I want to be alone. Old Mrs. Mo shook her head and laid down again. Chapter 491, Human Experiment. She buried her head in a blanket and cried silently, lamenting how difficult her life had been. She had lost 2 sons in succession, and in the end, even her grandchild was gone. She couldn't accept this fact, but she had to pretend to be strong and live on, making her last efforts for the company, her husband, left behind. A few days passed, and Ayn Rand could walk on her own. She spent every day in the laboratory and bedroom to research medicine that would help Jinrong so he'd wake up early. Boss is so pitiful. She encountered so many things after getting married and even lost her life several times. She hadn't even abandoned Jinrong. What a good girl. Fatty was moved to tears. Skinny comforted him. You're too sentimental, but Boss is indeed pitiful. She hadn't eaten or slept much these past few days and has lost weight. Ayn Rand was working on the medicine non-stop. She had tried several methods, but none of them had much effect. Every time she developed a medicine, she would test it on mice. Over time, the mice would get used to it, and she started to test it on herself. Ayn Rand, you can't do this. Medicine is 30% poisonous. Do you still want your life that you kept injecting medicine into yourself? Hong Ting hurriedly stopped her when she saw that Ayn Rand was about to inject another needle into her body. I'm alright. Jinrong isn't awake yet. I must hurry. Ayn Rand inserted another new needle into her arm as she spoke. Hong Ting couldn't help but scold her. Ayn Rand, look at the bruises on your arm. If you continue, you'll be crippled. Jinrong is fine for the time being. He hasn't even woken up yet. You don't have to be so nervous. I'm alright, don't worry. I just want to quickly develop the medicine and wake him up. These are non-toxic and harmless. They don't do any serious harm to the body. She had been researching the medicine for several days, but there was no result. She was starting to get anxious. Jinrong was still on the ventilator, and they could only feed him some nourishing medicine. It was time for him to drink the medicine again, so Ayn Rand carried it over personally and sat in front of him. She blew the medicine into a bowl in her hands and placed it inside. When the medicine cooled down, she picked up the drip and injected it into his blood vessels. She held Jinrong's hand tightly, picked up the nail clipper at the side, and helped him trim his nails as if nothing had happened. You're such a serene person, but now you've become like this. Everyone thinks you're dead, and you have to live well. Ayn Rand nagged him as she trimmed his nails. She finished cutting the nails on one side and continued on the other. You remember you asked me a question before? You asked me if the girl I was referring to was me? Sometimes I'm in a daze. Was that really me? But things are just so magical. If I told you that I was reborn, you wouldn't believe me, right? In my past life, you gave up your life for me. But I didn't pity you at all. In the end, I realized that everything was wrong. Fortunately, the heavens gave me a chance to be reborn and take revenge and to love you again. Ever since the day I was reborn, I've been telling myself that I'll take revenge and love you well. I don't know if you can hear me, but what I said today is from the bottom of my heart. I didn't dare to tell you before because I was afraid of scaring you. I know that you're an atheist, and I'm afraid that you won't believe anything I'll say. But it doesn't matter. As long as you wake up, everything will be alright. She lowered her head and continued talking, not noticing Jinrong's other hand was trembling slightly. Ayn Rand didn't notice, but she continued to speak to Jinrong. You may be curious about how they treated me in the past life that made me hate them so much. You may think that I went overboard sometimes, but you don't know what they did to me, or to you. Therefore, in this life, I swear that I'll make them pay 1,000 times over what they did to us. Hence, it doesn't matter how much they don't understand or doubt me. The moment Ayn Rand finished speaking, Hong Ting entered and said hurriedly, Boss, the results of the medicine are out and the effects are pretty good. You can consider giving it to Jinrong. Really? Ayn Rand was a little excited. She immediately ran to the lab to check the results of the medicine. The effects were indeed obvious. Can only give him a little to test the effect. After all, it's just an experimental report. If the effect improves, I'll increase the dosage. Anne was a little excited. After all, she had fought hard for several days, and this is the first time such a good result had appeared. Boss, there's one more thing you need to consider. Because we haven't taken action in a long time, there isn't much left in our account. If this continues, we won't be able to afford many herbs. Kang Ting had always been doing experiments, researching medicine and buying expensive herbs. He had been paying from the account, but because they haven't had a mission in a long time, their money was gradually decreasing, and they couldn't afford these expensive herbs anymore. Anna thought for a moment and said, Jerome can't stop taking medicine now. I'll use my own money to make up for it. Then you can look for a mission list. Zero is going to appear again. Great, I have something to do again. Patty and Skinny were both excited. But Jinrong can't be left without you. Now, if you go out, what will happen to Jinrong? Kang Ting looked at the person on the bed worriedly. I'll be back soon. Help me care for things here. Anran smiled. Boss, you just recovered. Do you want to go back to work? Is that okay? Patty was worried. Anran had been in an explosion and had just gotten better. She wouldn't be able to take it if she went to work again. It's not like I haven't been injured before. In the past, my injuries were much worse than this, but I still want to work. It's nothing new now. On the other side, Jackson had been very happy for a long time because Anran was dead. Now she wanted to marry into a rich family as soon as possible. Even if she died, she wouldn't let her off. But old Master Tyan didn't want to accept her either. The only way was to get pregnant early. She arranged to meet Tan Shilin in a hotel. After they made love, they sat on the bed and chatted. He took a cigarette from the cabinet beside him and picked up a lighter and lit it. Honey, when do you think we should have a child? Old Master is always rushing us to have a child so that I can marry you. Jackson leaned into Tan Shilin's arms and said, Chapter 492, Pregnant. Tan Shilin took a deep breath and said, It depends on your abilities. As long as you're pregnant, I'll register our marriage, but it'll be a different story if it's not a boy. Jackson looked up at him with dissatisfaction. I'm a medical student, don't you know that? The gender of the child depends on you. If you're not capable, I can't do anything about it. Little girl, don't worry, you'll know my abilities when we're pregnant. He tapped Jackson's forehead and said, Annan is dead. The Moan family's matters have nothing to do with you. What are you going to do if I get pregnant? Don't you look for me so that I can cooperate with you to deal with the Mo family. This plan won't work at all. Are you going to find another woman behind my back? Jackson probed. Tan Shilin moved his hand away and looked down at the woman in his arms. How many times have I told you? I can give you anything you want, but I can't give you monogamy. You can't be the only woman in my life. If you give birth and consolidate your position in the Tan family, you can have all the money and things you want. Whether I love you or not has nothing to do with you enjoying all of this. Although Jackson was dissatisfied, he was right. She married into a rich family because of his money, not because she really fell in love with the man. So she doesn't care if he had another woman, as long as she had a child and stabilizes the Tan family's position. Alright, as your future wife, I need to know your next plan. The Mo family may be leaderless now, but a child as their president, but Sheng Li won't let this go smoothly. With his temperament, he'll definitely cause trouble. Wouldn't that suit me? It'd be a good idea to openly steal the Mo family's market now. But it's fine if we disrupt the plan and steal their business, Tan Shilin said. So you want me to cooperate with him? I advise you not to say too much. You have no right to interfere in my business. Curiosity kills the cat. Tan Shilin didn't tell her his plan. Jackson pouted. I just want to understand. So you're unwilling to tell me, forget it. I'll have to prepare for the pregnancy next. Tan Shilin finished his last puff. What's the point of preparing for a baby? Can't you get pregnant just because you want to? He threw away the cigarette in his hand and pounced on Jackson again. After more than an hour of joy, the two of them ended it. You can't lie to me about being pregnant. Li Shishi has embarrassed me all over the country. If you use the same method as her, I'll kill you. With his previous experience, Tan Shilin was a little scared this time. Do you think everything is like what Li Shishi did? Don't worry, it'll definitely be real this time. Jackson wanted to marry into a rich family so she wouldn't lie. That better be the case. Anran and Jinrong are dead, and they pose no threat to us. We can finally do what we want. I really want to see my second uncle and second aunt now. Even though I mocked them last time, I don't think it's enough. Their daughter humiliated me in many ways possible. But their daughter is dead now, so it's my turn to mock them. Jackson didn't think that it would relieve her hatred. It's up to you, I don't care, just as long know if you need my help. I want revenge, so how can I let it go? In what way will you help me? Jackson stood up and put on her clothes, preparing to leave for the Lan family villa. Tan Shilin teased her, "You're quite anxious. Seeing that you're anxious for revenge, I'll help you." At the Lan family, Ting Young and Liu didn't go to work to create the illusion that they were still mourning that Anran had passed away. "Dad, I want to go out for a walk. I'm going to get moldy from staying in the house." Yanran smiled and said, "No, have you forgotten your sister's instructions? You can't ruin her plans," Ting Young smiled and said. But suddenly someone knocked at the door. Yanran opened the door, but was stopped by Ting Young. "Is he a bad person?" Leo was a little scared. She looked out through the peephole at the door and saw Jackson standing out there with a gift. "It's her again, Jackson." Leo opened the door. "What exactly do you want?" She spoke bluntly. "I don't have any bad intentions. I just thought that second uncle and second aunt must be very sad in the past 2 days. I was thinking that your daughter had passed away, so I wanted to bring a gift to comfort you." Jackson carried the gift in her hand, but she wasn't sad at all. Taylor was furious. Was this girl crazy? It wasn't enough to anger them once, but she had to go overboard. "Jackson, what are you trying to do? Are you really happy that your sister is gone?" Ting Young snatched the item from her hand and threw it out. "Uncle, at least Jackson came to see you and didn't mean anything. Aren't you being rude?" Tan Shilin smiled faintly. "She's been wanting my daughter to die. Do you think there's need to be polite to her? My daughter didn't need your consolations. Get lost." Leo was about to close the door when Tan Shilin stopped her. "Auntie, we came to pay our respects with reverence. It's one thing if you reject our condolences, but why are you treating us like this?" Tan Shilin didn't think it was enough and continued to exaggerate. If Ting Young didn't know what his daughter did while he was alive, he would be livid. "I said my daughter doesn't need your condolences. Hurry up and leave. You're not welcomed here. Second uncle, second aunt, I know they are upset, but I really didn't mean anything. I was so shocked by the news of my sister's death. But she's gone, so don't be sad anymore. Grandma and my parents aren't around, so I'm the only one who can represent my family to express our condolences. Get lost. You're not welcomed here. I say, my daughter doesn't need any condolences. She isn't dead at all." Leo couldn't help but tell the truth. Everyone took a deep breath and looked at her. Ting Young thought his wife had let it slip and stood at the side, not knowing what to do. I know you're upset, but you have to accept the truth. Sis has passed away, so don't struggle unnecessarily." Jackson was stunned for a moment, but then she smiled, not taking it seriously at all. He thought that Leo had gone crazy. Chapter 493, Hitting Someone When They're Down Again. How could someone who had passed away come back to life? "Uncle, auntie, my condolences. The death can't be revived. You have to accept this fact." Tan Shilin reminded them of Anran's death again. "Get lost. My daughter doesn't need your condolences," Ting Young said furiously. "You cursed my sister to death. Hurry up and get lost. If you don't, I'll call the police." Yanran spoke fiercely. "Yanran, sis Anran passed away, but you still have me, your sister. I'll treat you well too." Jackson continued. "You're so annoying, behaving like a meddling woman. What else do you guys want to say? If nothing else, then hurry up and leave my house. You're not welcomed here. Be careful, my sister's vengeful spirit is standing behind you, strangling you. I wonder if you dream that my sister will come back to find you. If not, I'll look forward to you dreaming about her thought. She'll watch you when you sleep and eat, watch you while you bathe, watch you when you go to the toilet. In short, she'll stare at you all the time to express your longing for her." Yanran didn't expect his bluff to be effective against Jackson. Jackson was startled and suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. "Jackson, are you done? I'll treat you well before. Back then, it didn't affect you when your parents and I were fighting. Girl, how could you become such a troublemaker? I sent your parents in because they hurt Anran, but we didn't hurt you. They broke the law and should be punished. Why don't you seem to have regret everything they did?" Ting Young lectured her. "You don't need to educate me. No matter how bad they are, they're still my parents. What right do you have to send them in?" Do you think it's great that you place your righteousness before your family? The result is retribution on your daughter. I became like this because of the harm your family caused me, but now that Sis Anne is dead, I won't say much about the past. One day my parents are released from prison. I'll make them come to pay their respects to my sister. But they'll depend on their mood, Yaxon said. You're hopeless. Your parents didn't educate you well, so you hurt my daughter? Lear hated her to the core. You probably don't know yet, but I slept with Jinrong not long ago before he died. He gave me a large sum of money. Your daughter didn't even know about this and actually died with him. Don't you think it's funny? But I wonder if Sis will know about this when they go to the Netherworld. But even if she knows, she can't do anything because it's already happened. She spoke proudly. Lear and Tingyang were furious when the angry voice suddenly came from behind. Get out of the way! Yanran splashed a basin of water in Yaxon's face. Yaxon was drenched from head to toe. Ha! You're not my sister. I never treated you as my sister. You're not worthy at all. Get lost before you know what's good for you. After Yanran splashed the water, he closed the door. Yaxon still hadn't come back to his senses. Yanran, just you wait. Tanshan was also drenched in water. Yaxon, what kind of savage relatives do you have? In the future, don't make me accompany you for such things. I don't know what water this is, but it stinks. Yaxon was disgusted and slapped the water off his body, but he was still drenched from head to toe. How would I know that they do this? But I'm very happy to see them like this, Yaxon said. After Yaxon left, Liu started to cry again. How could Jinrong do such a thing? Anna was still in the dark and she was still taking care of him. What a silly child. Tingyang sat on the sofa, his originally happy mood suddenly turning into gloom. What a beast. What did he promise me back then? Now he and that woman. He didn't want to continue. Mom, Dad, how could you listen to Yaxon's nonsense? Jinrong isn't that kind of person. I think she's just spreading rumors. Sister and brother-in-law can't clear things up now, so she's spouting nonsense. How could Jinrong have fallen for her? Yanran thought that she was lying. In any case, there wasn't any evidence, no matter what she said. Yes, we can't trust that woman, honey. Don't be fooled by her. Don't you know what kind of person our daughter is? She's too shrewd. Otherwise, how could she be the boss? I think we should wait for Yanran to come back to ask about this. With our daughter's personality, she'll definitely cause a stir if she finds out Jinrong cheated. Think about how big of a fuss it would be last time. It must be fake. Don't you believe our daughter's judgment? Tingyang smiled and said. Liu wiped her tears and thought about it. If her daughter found out that her husband was having an affair, she'd definitely turn the world upside down. Last time, it reached up to the point of a divorce, so this time it must be a lie. Your son is smarter than us. He's too quick to get angry. Anyway, our daughter is alive, and it'll be a slap to Yaxon's face in a few days, Tingyang smiled and said. But when will such days of waiting end? It's been days. I wonder if Anna is alright. Liu was worried. No news is the best news. Let's wait a while longer. Jinrong's injuries were serious and he probably won't wake up for at least half a month. Suddenly, the doorbell rang again. Yanran couldn't control his temper, thinking that it was Yaxon again. Are you done? He had just roared when he retracted the words. Grandma Mo? What brings you here today? Yanran instantly became well-behaved. What happened to you just now? Well, Mrs. Mo was frightened by Yanran's actions. Yanran shook his head. Nothing. An annoying person came to knock on the door before. Well, Mrs. Mo, why are you here? Liu was obviously a little surprised. She didn't seem to be in a good mood at the memorial service a few days ago, but she was actually here today. In-laws, don't misunderstand. I'm here today to discuss something with you. Well, Mrs. Mo was helped in by Nanny Wu. Tingyang looked at the two of them angrily. After all, they didn't care about his daughter's life at the memorial service. They were still thinking about the inheritance of the corporation. Chapter 494, Apology. Discuss what? Do you have any designs on my daughter? Her life or death has nothing to do with the Mo family. Liu was furious. In-laws, don't be anxious. I didn't come to tell you about that. I know that I've been neglecting your feelings during the memorial service, so I'm here to apologize. Mrs. Mo looked haggard as she said this. Apologize? How are you going to apologize for my daughter's life? Ever since she married into the Mo family, nothing good has happened. She was either injured or kidnapped. I really regret agreeing to the marriage. If I had known, I wouldn't have let my daughter marry into a family like yours. Ting Young was furious just thinking about it. Well, Mrs. Mo wasn't angry at his words. Instead, she apologized kindly. I'm really sorry. I know that because of my grandson's identity, your daughter and you have suffered a lot, but I don't have a choice. The enemy is watching us covertly. I can't let the foundation that my husband had worked so hard to build be ruined just like that. I don't care about that. In short, my daughter has nothing to do with you now. Don't even think about letting her into the Mo family's grave. If there's nothing else, hurry up and leave. Ting Young wanted to close the door. Oh, Mrs. Mo hurriedly said, In-laws, let me finish first. I suspect that your grandson and your daughter. Ting Young was taken aback and spoke angrily. Whether my daughter dies has nothing to do with you. I advise that you leave this place quickly. I don't care what happens to you. Although he spoke harshly, his gaze hinted for her to be careful. Well, Mrs. Mo seemed to have understood him, so she kept quiet. In-laws, since you don't welcome here, I'll come again next time. I hope that you can understand my difficulties. Jinrong is gone and the corporation is leaderless. I can't just watch it be destroyed. Leah was tired of Mrs. Mo's pompous words and chased her out impatiently. If her daughter wasn't still alive, she wouldn't have opened the door for her. Don't come back. You're not welcomed here. Leah spoke bluntly. Manny Wu and old Mrs. Mo were chased out. The Land family is too unreasonable. We were clearly there to tell them the news so they wouldn't be sad, but they chased us out. And they're still counted as a medical family. They're unreasonable. Nanny, we don't blame them. They felt upset after losing their daughter and naturally wouldn't be willing to accept us since we didn't care about them at the memorial service and instead dealt with the corporation's assets, making them very sad. It's only right that they resent us. Let's go back first. From Ting Young's words, it seems that someone wants to kill them. It's not safe here. Let's go back. Mrs. Mo was smart and had been in the business for a long time, so she could actually understand some hints. Nanny Wu looked around coldly. Now that she said it, it did seem eerie. A few more days had passed, and Sheng Li was basically certain that the two of them were dead. If they hadn't died, they would be seriously injured and wouldn't be able to come back anyway. He started to deal with the higher-ups of the Mo Corporation. Back then, Jinrong was the highest leader. But now that the top has collapsed, the bottom won't last long. Hence, he secretly met with many shareholders and discussed the shares. Sal, you didn't give me the shares previously because of Jinrong. On account of our relationship, I won't say anything. Now, I'll be honest. I want to be the president of the Mo Corporation. Jinrong has passed away and I'm his uncle, so I should get the biggest shares. The Mo Corporation is supported by a child now, and we're all old employees of the company. How can we watch the company be destroyed by a mere child? You have been in the corporation for so many years and have feelings for it. I am the eldest in the Mo family, and I might say that I am ambitious and want to seize power, and I don't deny that. Everyone desires power. Let's not talk about this. As long as you hand over your shares, I can give you a fair price, so just hand over your shares. You have no worries now that Jinrong has passed away. Hurry up and hand all over your shares to me. Don't even think about leaving this place if anyone doesn't hand them over today. Sheng Li held a glass of wine and walked around the company, threatening everyone with his tone of voice. Everyone present was dissatisfied as they whispered to each other. Zhao Zhen was the first to stand up. Mr. Mo, you asked us for the shares previously, and now you're asking for us for the shares again. Didn't we agree that it was just a meal and not to talk about the shares? Jinrong warned us last time, aren't you asking us to ruin a bullet? Although Jinrong passed away, old Mrs. Mo is still around. If she finds out, we won't be able to be shareholders anymore. Boss, what are you afraid of? Old Mrs. Mo doesn't know anything since she's at home. Jinrong had passed away, and you're afraid that he'll come back looking for you? What you say doesn't count. Old Mrs. Mo has shares in the company too. If you can get her shares, we'll believe you, Li Tian said. Sheng Li took a sip of red wine and didn't speak. These old foxes wouldn't agree if he didn't get serious with them. He drank the last mouthful of wine in his hand and smashed the glass into the ground. Don't be so shameless. I have my own ways to get my mom's shares. You better hand over your shares obediently or none of you will leave this place today. At that moment, the door suddenly opened and some people in black suits and sunglasses barged in. Mo Sheng Li, are you trying to kill someone? Zhao Zhen looked at the burly men behind Sheng Li and felt a little scared. So what if I killed someone? I advise you behave yourselves and hand over your shares immediately. Then nothing will happen today, or else I'll make you regret it. Sheng Li glanced around. Zhao Zhen was the oldest among the shareholders, and there was always someone who wanted to eat the crab first. Zhao Jun, you have the most experience. I hope that you'll take the initiative to stand up to be a role model. Don't worry, I have prepared the money. I can give you more than 3 times the original price. You won't lose out on this deal. Chapter 495, Transfer of Shares. No one spoke, waiting for Zhao Jun to express his stance. Zhao Jun was in a difficult position. He had just become the leader, and if he was resistant, he would definitely be the first to be killed. Don't worry, I'll talk to my mom. You just have to sign the contract, and you don't have to worry about anything. You can just take the money. Shang Li threw the pen in front of him. Zhao Jun picked the pen gently and signed his name with a trembling hand. Suddenly, the door opened, and old Mrs. Mo and Nanny Wu walked in. Let's see who dares to sign it. Old Mrs. Mo spoke confidently. Mom, why are you here? Shang Li didn't believe it. Why am I here, you bastard? When I wasn't looking, Ron passed away. You started to cause trouble again. I told you you can't manage the company, but you secretly took other people's shares. What exactly do you want? When Mrs. Mo grabbed the contract angrily and tore it to shreds. What are you doing? Why can't I be president? You made the new kid the president, but you don't even want me to be the president. I know that I'm not your biological son, but you don't have to look down on me, Shang Li said furiously. Am I looking down on you, or are you looking down on yourself? How much do you want to be president? You started to act like this when Jinrong was around, but you fully seized the opportunity now that he isn't. If anyone dares to sign this contract today, I'll die here. Old Mrs. Mo took the dagger and placed it on her neck. Shang Li wasn't afraid of her threat and said, Mom, why are you doing this? It's only a matter of time before I become the president. Even if you stubbornly resist now, the future is mine. It'll be better if you can end your life now so I can inherit the company faster. Trace of surprise flashed in old Mrs. Mo's eyes. She didn't expect Shang Li not to care about her life. Shang Li, I ask yourself, I treated you well, right? You revealed your true colors as soon as Jinrong died. Do you want to do the same thing more than 10 years ago? Now that the things have come to this, I'll tell you the truth. Back then, I did want to kill Jinrong, but unfortunately, Nanny Wu came out and ruined my plan. I could only jump into the sea. All these years, I have concealed my identity to endure hardships for this day. You probably don't know this, but I'm the leader of the number 1 mafia group abroad, which is commonly known as Triad. I worked hard to get these results. Look at the scars on my body. They're all traces of me being the boss. If you dare to disobey me one day and do not sign this contract obediently, and don't blame me when you guys are injured. Think about whether your life or money is that important. Isn't it good to take the money and keep it a secret? I won't blame you if you listen to an old lady's nonsense. Most of you will be good men in your next life. Shang Li waved his hand, asking for the bodyguards to pull someone over to place the knife against his neck. Are you going to sign it? The knife will be in your neck next if you don't sign it. Everyone was frightened and hurriedly signed the contract. Are you crazy, Shang Li? You're killing someone, old Mrs. Mo shouted. Of course I know I'm killing someone. If you were obedient, I wouldn't have done such a thing. Wouldn't it be better if they signed it? The last copy is yours. Even if you didn't sign it, it'll be mine after you die. So why don't you just sign it now? Old Mrs. Mo picked up the pen in her trembling hand and signed the contract. She understood that Shang Li was forcing her to abdicate, but she had to live to see her grandson. Mom, you may be old, but you aren't foolish. You should learn all from my mom. I told you kindly, but you weren't willing and forced me to use violence. See, aren't you behaving now? Someone send Mom back to the good rest. Don't let her run around if anything goes wrong. Shang Li happily kept all the contracts and left with the bodyguards. Oh, Mrs. Mo, how could he have become like this? Nanny Wu shook her head and asked. Oh, Mrs. Mo and Nanny Wu were sent home by the bodyguards and placed under house arrest. Shang Li took the contracts into the company and announced that he was the boss. Shang Li's announcement was in the middle of the company hall. Everyone, do you see the shareholders' agreement in my hand? Everyone transferred their shares to me. I am now the biggest shareholder of the company, your boss, the new president of the Mo Corporation. Every one of you will belong to me, but don't worry, I won't fire any of you. Just do your job well. Shang Li was overjoyed. He took the shares transfer agreement and went to the finance department. He still remembered everything the finance department manager had done to him last time. How is it, Manager Jiang? I still remember everything you did to me last time. How did you look down on me and humiliated me before? I became the president, and even old Mrs. Mo approves of me. What do you think I should do now? Will you resign, or will I fire? Your choice. Jiang Jin wasn't frightened by Shang Li's words. He spoke to his assistant. There's no need to cause trouble, Boss Mo. I'll leave myself, but before I leave, there's one more thing. Previously, Miss Lan instructed that if Boss Mo really becomes the president, we'll have to schedule the scores so that there won't be a problem during the handover. Cheng Li nodded and said, "You're right. Since you want to settle the score, calculate it properly. How much money do we have now?" Jiang Jin showed the report to Cheng Li. Cheng Li immediately said that the report was fake. How can there be so little money left in the account? Last time it was said that there would be 2 billion left. How can there such be a big corporation and only have 2 billion left? It's been so long and yet still so little money. There's not even enough for a project. Are you trying to fool me? I'm the president of the corporation now. You'd better hand over the account book immediately. Boss Mo, it's true. Miss Lan asked me to transfer a large sum of money into another account. Now, other than those profits from the project that have been calculated, the company doesn't have any more money to invest. I can give the accounts to you. I'm leaving anyway, so I won't be able to get a single cent from it. Jiang Jin handed the account password to Cheng Li. Cheng Li couldn't wait to check on how much money was in the account, but was dumbfounded. There was only 1 yuan left in the account. He looked at Jiang Jin angrily.